What's going on, everyone?
Yeah. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
We made it to another one.
I'm a little bit sore today.
Yeah. Yeah, you played hockey last night, huh?
Yep. We lost 4-2, but I did everything I could. Played well.
It happens.
Yeah. For sure. Woke
Can't
up.
win everyone, right?
Oh, what was
You're
that?
breaking stuff. My desk. I don't know. I think I just accidentally did something there. But yeah.
Everything went the way I could have, anyone could ask for. Load delivered on time. POD was sent in within 10 minutes. Paid the driver almost instantly.
There you go.
Everyone's happy.
Yeah, you have better luck than I have. We had a couple of late trucks this week, and the one was just outrageously late that didn't need to happen. But
well, I'm lucky that most of my freight is coming out of like Houston, where like I could find a lot of trucks within 20 minutes of the location. You know what I mean? So
right.
So when I book a truck, he typically has no excuse to be late.
Well, yeah. My truck just happened to get to the pickup early before the appointment and ended up burning up his hours.
Yeah, we talked about that. That was stuff we deal with. We deal with.
So my butt probably looks like 50 pounds of chewed bubble gum right now after my customer was as upset as they were, but
right.
There's so much I can do,
Exactly.
But,
what we could talk about is what you were telling me yesterday, which I wasn't really aware of very much, but like a prospective client, if you are kind of skeptical of the person, don't give them your packet right away because of the scams that are going on.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if it's someone else who's already involved in the logistics industry, in transportation.
Right, and they have a truck or something like that. Like it kind of throws you off a little bit.
Right.
I didn't think of that because I do know other trucking companies who they outsource their excess freight. Like I know of one right now that's doing a ton of it. I feel like they're brokering out more of their freight than they're actually moving on their own trucks. But
yeah,
I guess it's just kind of hard to tell who's who anymore.
Yeah, there's a few big box brokerages I won't name by name, but they're another one for more or less representing that they have a truck, and then if you do give them the information to book it, and they're like, okay, well let me check with my driver, and later it's listed on DAT, and it's like
Does it happen to start with an L?
It very well could, Devin. It very well could start with an L. They're notorious for that.
The L Ranger,
right? Yeah. Whenever I do post spot loads, I have to always remember to put down no L.
Well, to be honest with you, I've been on the inside of that company. My uncle had a agency through them, and you are spot on. A lot of these agencies are like they're taking the freight, and then they have these in-house board. They have an in-house load board, right? Mm-hmm. That goes to their assets, which they're supposed to use first, right? But they put it on DAT and truck stop as well. So they're telling you, hey, I'm getting you a Landstar truck. Oh, I dropped the name. Well, it is what it is. People can be mad about it, but I've worked for them, so I can tell you. And I'll take all the blame for it. People can be mad at me. But like some of these agencies, like they will literally fight each other for the same loads. Like they'll try to like take your loads from you and stuff. Like they'll literally go on the truck stop board and be like, hey, I'm from this other Landstar agency. I got a truck here and here. And they don't even have a truck. They're like willing to book within the company and then still broker out the load and not even tell them.
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah, I've had 4 or 5 phone calls in a row from, different L agencies or whatever around the country calling me about the same load. And it's like, really?
Right.
But,
and it's kind of funny how it works over there. I mean, I don't know. That's what happens when you get too big, right?
I'll tell you a horror story. Back when I first started, I think I was in like my first month or two, first 2 or 3 months probably. I don't remember exactly, but I was like brand new.
Right.
And I ended up landing this shipper, and they were shipping open deck freight. And I was really excited, I mean, this was like my second customer, and and they had a lot of freight. And the first phone call I took on it, because I hadn't had any carrier relationships yet or anything at that point,
Right.
To speak of. It was something I was working on, but anyway, I ended up getting a call from another big box brokerage, and they were like, yeah, we can get all of these covered for you, no problem. We've got tons of capacity in the area. And so they ended up booking like 90% of my loads.
Oh no.
Yeah. And I'm just like, and being an agent at the time, I talked to my manager, and they're like, yeah, if they can do it, which I think was probably not the best advice on their part. They probably should have seen, an issue with that, but they didn't.
I mean, I think a lot of these companies are doing it anyway, right? I mean, it's kind of double brokering is it's frowned upon, right? But
Right.
we already know that a lot of these companies, all these big companies, they're all doing it.
Well, this wasn't even an asset-based company, but they were a big box brokerage.
So it's even worse.
Right. So I ended up handing them like a majority of my freight. Guess how many trucks showed up?
They're all late or they didn't show up.
Big goose egg. So
And
then my customer was furious with me, and then come to find out, I ended up losing that customer, and then they turned around and back solicited that customer.
Yeah, that's what I figured was going to be the end of the story there. They didn't send any trucks. They screwed you, and then they went in. Yep.
So
it's pretty
I did end up getting that same customer back about 2 years later. I kind of waited for a cool down period.
Right.
I did end up getting them back, but yeah, it was definitely a down point in my freight brokering career, early on.
Right. Well, I feel like you get what you pay for, right? Like a lot of the bigger companies offer cheaper rates, but then sometimes their trucks don't even show up, or the truck falls off, or you end up covering it 4 times in one day. Like, that's why I like to pay my drivers good.
Right. Well, and there too, I think, the training that I had done, like looking back on it, was absolute garbage.
Right.
At the time.
You were young.
It was a lot of legal mumbo jumbo. Here's your equipment types. Da 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 da. I didn't have any sales background at the time, so making cold calls and soliciting prospects and things was obviously a struggle first starting out. But I didn't know anything about like cold brokering or double brokering, and there is a difference. But there was still like all of these gaps, that weren't explained to me at the time, and it kind of sucked. I'm not gonna lie. It was a huge learning curve once I got into it, and inevitably, that's why that ended up happening to me. And so it's sort of like lessons learned along the road.
Right. There's just nothing worse than booking a load with someone and then finding out that they freaking brokered it out too. And at that point, the load's already in motion. So you're like, I just hope the truck shows up on time. I just hope everyone's getting their money. Like, at the end of the day.
Right.
Because sometimes you don't find out till you're about to deliver.
Yeah.
You talk to the driver and you're like, hey, are you from this company? No, I'm from this company. They booked me on the load board. It's like, what?
Yeah, that's why you always have to follow up.
Oh yeah.
You know, and do that check. Yeah, I mean, as long as I've been in this, I've had mishaps. You know,
Right.
had a brain fart, forgot to check, and then something bad happened, or you know, just an oversight on my part, got in too big of a hurry or something. You know.
Well, my biggest thing now, right, is I go on Safer Web and I check to see if they have inspections on their trucks, and like if they have a lot of them. Because like the other day, right, I was looking at that
you had a truck the
carrier.
other day.
I had a truck the other day, and they started their form date was like it was like December of 2022, and then there was no inspections, none. But they had 14 units. It didn't make any sense. Should have had at least one or two inspections by now, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, probably.
and then the other guy calls, and I look, and he's got like 30 inspections. He's got a bunch of trucks. They have a bunch of miles driven, been around for 5-10 years. Obviously, I'm gonna go with that guy. And it's unfortunate because for a newer company, those are some of the hurdles that they have to go through.
Right.
Same thing like us, our Bellotto Freight. We have hurdles we got to go through because we're a newer company. People look at our credit and they're like, "Oh, you're new," or you don't have any. Zero inspections are not a red flag, but if, like, for instance, he just didn't. He couldn't give me like information on the driver right away, and there's zero inspections. It just all looks pretty bad. I mean, it's not. It is kind of a red flag, man. To be honest, Mr. Torres. As a broker, anyway, when you're looking for a driver and you have high value freight and they have no inspections, it's kind of rough. It makes your decision a little bit harder. You're going to always go with the guy who's been around 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, has a bunch of inspections and a good safety rating, right? Like, it's typically how it goes. And that's why it's a little bit harder for a newer carrier breaking in, I think. And the same thing for a broker. We go through the same thing every day. Like, we're a newer brokerage. Tim and I work at Bellotto Freight. And what we have to do, because our credit is new, well, I think you guys should have inspections though, right? Like, I think it'd be important to, from your standpoint, Tim, how about you chime in a little bit? I think when I'm looking at like the carrier, because of all the scams and stuff going on, we use inspections and we use these tools to kind of give us an idea if the carrier is going to be reliable or not. And inspections are actually one of the ones I look at, because even like I was talking to one of my friends who has a brokerage. I forget what company he works with, but he deals with high value freight too. And he had a load on the board, and 5 different carriers called him, said they had a truck, and they had carrier authority and everything. And then they come to find out they're double brokering it, right? So now he's looking at inspections. He's looking at all these other things to make sure that like these are actual trucks now. Like, that's just kind of what we're dealing with right now. It makes it a little bit difficult for you to decide on who to use sometimes. And if you do have the inspections and you do have all the miles driven and it's all there on Safer Web and all the documentation, 9 times out of 10, I'm going with that guy. I don't know. That's just me.
Yeah, I mean, it can cause hesitation using a carrier that doesn't have inspections, but I don't. If they're new and they don't have any, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're bad.
Right. We're not saying they're bad.
I've worked with a lot of new carriers that didn't have inspections, you know, owner operators and that,
right.
But they've got 22 years experience, you know, as a driver. They just happen to go out on their own and they just haven't had a single inspection yet.
See, and then for an instance like that, I probably wouldn't run them on high value freight though at first, right? I'd probably want to do a couple loads with them on some regular freight, see how it goes, and then give them something, you know, that pays a little higher, right? That's just, I don't know. That's how I operate.
Right. Yeah, I mean, everybody, I guess, kind of has their own thoughts on it. I don't. I guess for myself personally, I don't necessarily count them out right away.
Right.
I think some of it kind of depends upon how that phone call goes. For
Yep.
me,
Yeah, I mean,
like you
that's
mentioned,
usually
if they
the
don't have a lot of the information and things, it's because what that sort of red flags for me, if they don't readily have that information available, number one, they're probably going to double broker it.
and that's what sent me. So I guess it's not really the inspections, but that was like kind of an icing on the cake. The call
Right.
was kind of weird. And the next thing you know, I'm on Safer Web looking them up because I didn't think the call went well. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Right. I not to jump topic on that or anything, but independent dispatch services. I tend to have a.
yeah, you already heard me.
Yeah. I've always had sort of a love-hate relationship. Don't get me wrong. I've worked with some independent dispatch services that were great, but it just seems more times than not,
Drivers are
I end up
late.
having issues with them.
Yep, drivers late. Updates are coming late.
Well,
PODs taking forever. I mean, that's my experience.
Like I use HubSpot for my email tracker, right? And I actually had a load the other day out of Washington, had to run to Cali, and they seemed like they really knew what they were doing, and everything. And I knew that they were a dispatch service and everything. They had all the information available, and I felt pretty comfortable using them. It was an owner operator driver, he'd been around for a little while and everything, and booked the load. Communication on day one of pickup was there, but it was real slow.
Right. Like you needed something and then it comes in like a half an hour later or an hour later,
Right.
2 hours later.
So I wasn't like overly worried about it. And then, I thought, man, should I put tracking on this load? But I didn't. It wasn't a very high value load,
Right.
Not that should make a difference, but anywho, long story short, I couldn't get an exact ETA after the driver got loaded of when they were going to make delivery today. And I kept trying. I tried to reach them by phone, couldn't reach them. I sent multiple emails. They're opening emails and just flat out not responding.
Right.
That's a communication breakdown. And I did manage to get a hold of the driver, though, and because I typically try not to bother drivers, if at all possible, because they're out there doing their thing, right? They don't need me blowing them up, which kind of leads me to another point when I finish this. But yeah, great guy. Talked to him and everything. Got me all the paperwork 10 minutes after he dropped. Super great guy. I would use him again. And I explained, that I typically don't like to bother drivers, but his dispatcher just simply was not.
Oh, that was this load that you just handled. Yeah.
Yep. And
that was a dispatch service. Makes sense.
Yeah. And so he said that he had been having problems with them for a little while now, and he was about done with them. And for me to just contact him directly when I need to book a load. Excuse me 1 second. My puppy just busted out.
You're good. So thinking back to the safety ratings and stuff and the hesitation, I think that drivers also have the same kind of hesitation though with the new brokerage, right? Like if we had the new credit, we just got set up with RTS, our credit's new. Some people are a little worried about that, right? Mm-hmm. So what I've been doing is I've been just wiring the money 70% right there when they pick up and 30% at delivery. But some people don't even want to like even consider it, right? Like they're a little hesitant. That's kind of how I get, I guess, when it comes to the newer trucking companies, right?
All right, you need to get down.
So, no, I don't work with Landstar. My uncle had a Landstar agency for a while, and he ran it pretty straight and narrow, but a lot of those guys are just double brokering boards. I'm going to be quite honest with you. And whoever works there that's in this group can get mad at me, but I mean, the reputation was built on actions, not someone talking about them. So I mean,
Right.
And they're not the only ones. I mean, they're all doing it. All the big companies can get away with it because they're huge. And so they're doing a lot of things in the gray area that simply we can't do. Like I know some of them are even brokering out Amazon freight. The average person, the average broker can't even get in there to even consider brokering it out. I did have a relationship with them for a little bit where they allowed us to do it for a short period of time. But then, they switch it up on you out of nowhere. But, that's kind of what happens when you got billions of dollars in a company and tons of trucks, right? So we use a factoring company too, but luckily our owner does have enough money to front the carriers. Like we've been just wiring the money because we know we're getting paid, right? Our customers have been paying, so we're not really too worried about it. But yeah, I mean, it can be hard when you're newer if you don't have the money to be able to wire a carrier 70% or whatever it is that you need. And I think Tim, you were watching some videos, I think, on YouTube here about how to kind of bring the credit up pretty quick. I don't know. Maybe we could do some research on that and do a
actually
about it.
Yeah, actually, one of our new group partners, Oprify,
right?
Tom is actually going to come on. We're trying to schedule a good date and time that kind of works for him and I. And Devin, awesome. We could have all three of us on.
Well, it would be good for him to kind of teach us and then teach the crowd how to do it.
Right. So there's a lot of things that you can do to build your credit score, your days to pay and everything on DAT that a lot of people aren't aware of. And you're kind of getting it straight from the horse's mouth, right? Not you and I telling. So yeah, that is something that I do have planned. I don't have an exact date on that yet, but as soon as I do, I'll probably give everybody a heads up in the community tab on the channel.
Yeah, we could probably just let him take over, and then we'll just sit off to the side and then ask him questions at the end for the chatters. For
sure. Yeah, he's going to come on, talk about Ansonia, all of the, everything.
Right.
So I thought that was something that would, a lot of people would find very useful, especially brokers. And it'll, of course, all be live, so there'll be plenty of Q&A.
Right.
Yeah, we'd love to have you watch. I love you guys commenting and everything. That's awesome. Yeah, like I said, and I'll give you guys a heads up as soon as I have a firm date on that.
Exactly.
Now we've been talking about kind of like big box brokerages and things. Something else that I don't know. There always seems to kind of be this cycle with things. This is one that kind of almost never goes away, and I know there's multiple companies out there that are guilty of it. Is that they require tracking on every single load, and then they're calling drivers every 15 minutes.
Yeah. See, I required tracking on most of my freight. Well, I used to, because all I was doing was expedite high value freight, so everything needed it, right? Now, if for some reason the driver didn't set up my tracking, yeah, I'm calling because I need it, because the customer's on the other line blowing up my phone, right? So
absolutely. Well, and what I've done when I have to put tracking on a load is I'll make sure that I put that I'll send the tracking like several hours early. I know that there's some they'll actually send it as much as 3 days early. Like that driver's still under another load. He hasn't even delivered, his previous load yet, and they're already, making sure that he is where he's going to be, and all that. I don't see that as a necessity. And I know it frustrates a lot of drivers, getting those calls every 15 minutes and then on top of the tracking. I don't know. I guess for myself personally, I don't understand the mentality behind that.
Right.
And it just I think it destroys a lot of relationships because drivers hate that.
They do. They don't really like being tracked. They just don't. Because it's on their cell phone, it's their personal property, this and that. They're worried about.
Well, there's so many different tracking apps too.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I could see that. I usually don't ask for it until like an hour before pickup. I want them to make sure it's, started. That way I can have it done already.
And I traditionally used to do that, but then, I would run into instances, oh, well, the driver's still, 200 miles out. He's not going to make pickup now, that kind of a thing. And maybe the driver didn't speak English. I'm not very fluent in other languages, unfortunately. So it was like, and they would tell me that when I would try to call, I wouldn't get an answer, that kind of thing. So I sort of, I left a certain amount of trust in there. But then when I find out last minute, especially if it's like a later in the day type pickup,
when it's like 2
minutes. If I have to recover that load, I don't want to be under the gun. So that's why I've started putting tracking on. Like if the load picks up at 5, let's say, like I'll send tracking at noon.
Yeah, I think that's good. I don't think you're asking for too much. I mean, I feel like
want to, but
right. Well, exactly. I mean, they don't. I don't know. I've actually had drivers who do mind being tracked. Like they don't like it.
Yep.
So to say that drivers don't mind being tracked, no, there are actually quite a few drivers that hate it, and they'll tell you. But then there's a lot of guys who understand, like, hey, this is a high value product. Like I was moving airplane engines, like. Of course, I'm going to track the load. I have to have an update every hour where it's at, right? So, I mean, yeah. And then Elias, back to the factoring. Yeah, I don't do quick pay either. We literally just send them the money. It's usually on a load that really needs to be covered, and for some reason or other, their factoring company can't set up with us. Then we do it. But always try to factor your loads if you can. That's what we try to do. So. We just have other options to make sure it gets done. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of times those same companies that are calling every 15 minutes, on top of the tracking, or even some that don't, there'll be a carrier that will run, multiple loads. And then even from the first load that they've done, they're not getting paid, but yet they keep continually running those loads. You know what I mean? Until there's so much money that's owed to them.
Right.
And it's like, why? I guess I don't understand that either. Like if you have such a big problem with some of these other brokerages, then stop running for them.
Yeah, I know,
I have
right?
Service failures or something like that with a carrier, I don't use them anymore.
No, I generally just don't even talk to them ever again. I have given, if the people were really nice and it seemed like, the reason why they were late was legit, and so we had a service failure, I usually give them one more try. One more. It's usually on something that's like not as high value, not as like expedited, but just to see, Right. But there are some carriers where they feed you a line of BS. You can see it a mile away. And that they're lying to you, and you just don't talk to those guys again. And that's the thing. Like you see in a lot of these chats, in a lot of the groups and stuff, and people are complaining about certain brokers or certain carriers, it's easy. Just don't work with them.
Right.
You don't have to work with TQL. You don't have to work with Coyote. You don't have to work with Landstar, XPO. There's customers everywhere.
Well, yeah, there's some of the more well-known, companies.
Amazon.
But, I mean, there's a lot of them, or
Right.
short pays. They didn't get paid, and well, why is that? Well, there's a pending claim. Okay, well, where's the proof? Well, we don't have it yet, and then they hold up payment for
Right.
X amount of months until you just get frustrated and like, okay, just pay me what, I don't know.
And that's the thing. If a carrier is complaining about if a broker is complaining about a certain carrier, we don't have to work with the carrier. And if a driver is complaining about a certain customer or broker, they don't have to work with them. You quit wasting your energy on those people and just find new customers. And that's the thing. I think that's another topic about there are certain people in the industry that think that brokers are the worst, right? But you wouldn't be complaining about them if you didn't need them. Pretty simple, right? You would have already done it on your own if you didn't need a broker.
Well, a lot of shippers use brokers because they either don't have the manpower or they just don't want to deal with vetting carriers, making sure that, insurance is up to date, the authority is, still active, all these kinds of things,
we kind of streamline it for them.
Well, yeah, we take care of the headaches that they don't want to deal with, in a sense. And so, that's like I mentioned, I think in the last video, like I've got one customer right off the top of my head. I am literally their transportation department. They have sales. That's it.
Exactly.
They don't have a logistics manager or someone that's in charge. Like I handle everything. So.
Yeah, I get that for sure.
Yeah, I know some places do call too much. But inevitably, like all of it basically, I think boils down to is building relationships, right? And maintaining those relationships. In fact, I had a load the other day. It's a drop and hook, and my driver could not get his trailer where they had delivered because the company had left to go watch the Super Bowl parade and didn't inform anyone and locked the gate. So he had no access to it until they got back. So, of course, they call, give me a heads up. And I've worked with this carrier for a long, long time, right? And they've yet to let me down,
right?
Outside of weather or a traffic accident or something, you know what I mean? And that's so few and far between. I mean, they're just phenomenal. And I'm not going to mention their name because I don't want anybody using them.
Exactly.
I really don't. They're mine, So, anywho, they called to let me know, said that, they were going to be a little bit late, picking up because of this issue. So I immediately do what I'm supposed to do, contact the customer, say, hey, here's the situation, but they're going to be there, just as quick as they can. Well, they don't have another trailer, not in the area. It would be a lot longer for them to go grab another trailer and then get back, to pick up. And so they immediately said, well, just recover it.
Right.
No.
I know. I'm just saying, right? Like that's, of course, they would say that.
No, I got that, but that was, I said, well, I'll see what I can do, and I called him back a little while later, and I said, as soon as I can get a truck in there is like 7 o'clock. It was like going to be so late, because I just wasn't going to do that. I mean, it was unreasonable in my mind.
Who the hell leaves? Like you have a load coming, you have trucks coming. Who the hell just decides I'm going to leave and go to the Super Bowl parade? Like, how unprofessional is that?
Right. And then
that kind of shows you
heads up, or
shows you what the workforce is like right now.
But yeah, it was all the way up from the CEO all the way down through the company. There wasn't one person there. It was just tumbleweeds, essentially.
No sign, nothing. No.
Nope. But see, and that inevitably ends up screwing a lot of things up. It's sort of like that load that I had last week that was supposed to drop on Friday. Well, that because it's a miscellaneous freight load, all of that gets broken down, right?
Right.
Repalletized with other trucks from, or with other products from other trucks that are coming in, and then that goes back out. Well, if that truck doesn't get there in time, it really like screws everything up. And so when that truck didn't deliver Friday, we rescheduled for Saturday. Driver said, "Yep, we can do that." And then inevitably he says, "No." He says, "I don't want to do that." He says, "I'm just going to stay home for the weekend," rather than dropping Saturday morning. Well, that infuriated my customer, of course, and
They
I
showed
more
up
or less
late.
right. And so then they would be there first thing Monday morning. They were not. I don't think they ended up getting there till like Monday at like 4:00. So what this does is inevitably what they ended up doing, because they needed that product to load all the Monday trucks. You know what I mean? All of that product had to be broken down over the weekend, repalletized and everything to load these trucks on Monday. So they weren't just screwing me. They weren't just screwing the customer. They were screwing all of these drivers waiting for loads.
Yep. They're holding up the dock. They're holding up the facility.
I think there was something like a dozen trucks that ended up getting canceled or rescheduled. I mean, that just messes everything up for everybody. And that's,
kind of puts you in the hot seat.
It does. But it also, shows what service failures can do and the chain effect that it had, the ripple effect that it can have on things. But when it's something outside of a carrier's control, like that instance the other day, when they couldn't get in because the company decided to leave to go to the Super Bowl parade.
I still can't.
I can't blame them for that, and I've been with them for too long to just, let a half an hour to an hour, be the end all of that. It just.
I'm just so glad my Friday went okay. The driver picked up. The driver picked up yesterday on time. He got to the facility today, scared me a little bit, said nobody was there. And I knew he was running a little late. Again, running a little late, but he was fine. And then I called the point of contact, and the point of contact didn't answer the phone. So I texted him, didn't answer. Then my driver called him, and I guess he answered for the driver. And they got him back there, and he unloaded. But I'm just happy it all went smooth. It's Friday. Just want to decompress and forget about it.
Right.
Then Monday, I'm hoping everything goes well. I mean, we have a container to pick up, and it's President's Day, so the customer is not even, like, my customer is not even going to be in the office. Like, they're closed on President's Day. So they're not going to want to hear any like bad news while they're not in the office, right? They're chilling. They're doing their own thing. So I have to have everything go smoothly on Monday.
For sure.
So it's kind of what I'm thinking towards next week already.
By the way, guys, if you people that are watching, if you guys have any questions for Devin and I, by all means, hit us up. I know normally when I do my solo lives, I kind of do my thing and then we do the Q&A at the end, but by all means, hit us up.
And if I seem a little tired today, I am. I streamed for like 4 hours and then I jumped on here.
Yeah. You guys, if you guys are gamers, check out Pure Sports Detroit. That's Devin's channel. They're on YouTube. I watch them every chance I get. It's a really fun time.
Yeah, today we were on Twitch just because you can get away with like listening to copyright music on there a little bit, and then you just don't have the video on demand show after. So we were just having a good time trying out MLB The Show and the technical test. That's a fun game. You liked it. You liked what you seen.
Yeah.
Oh, you play Warzone? I sometimes do. My son plays a lot of Warzone. It's a good game. Call of Duty Warzone's fun. I'm more of I'm more of a Battlefield guy. I know that there's like
Love Battlefield.
I know that there's like competing. Those are like competing titles, and the what is it? The fan bases are very passionate about their opinions on each game. That's one way to put it, right?
Right.
The biggest thing for me is like I just can't do the Call of Duty lobbies. I have to mute everybody because it's just so crazy. Some of the stuff that gets said in there, it's just unbelievable, and it's usually like some 8-year-old who has a mouth that you just couldn't believe. Saying the craziest stuff. But no, we had a good time. It was like a good 4 hours. Oh, my streaming link. Let me see if I can even. Can I even type it up here? Actually,
we'll share it through the live chat there.
I don't think I'm signed in to StreamYards. You can share it for me, Tim, if you'd like.
Okay.
Share my YouTube and my Twitch if you can.
Okay. I might have to log back into my Twitch account.
That's what I do. Like when logistics is a little slow and I have all my loads covered, I usually jump on here and I play some games, do some streaming. We've been working on the YouTube trying to get me to 1,000 subs. We're at like 2 something. We're slowly building. It's been a good month. Tim, also known as Freight Master Resources, obviously. He's got a nice YouTube channel. I think 1.5 subs on there, something like that. 1.5 thousand. You're up there. We're just trying to get your watch hours up, right?
Yeah, 1.61.
Oh, see, you've even grown since I think last time I checked.
Last week, maybe.
Yeah. So that's what we do on our spare time. I think YouTube in the long run pays pretty well. So I've been kind of grinding that for a bit. I appreciate it, man. I appreciate the sub. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Everything helps. I've been doing a lot of like shorts lately. It doesn't take long to edit, but people seem to really like those. I don't know.
I hate doing video editing.
I don't mind the shorts because it's like 10 minutes, right? But when you're doing a bigger video, it can be a little annoying. I have to usually grab a 6-pack of beer and set it on my desk.
You got to get through it one way or another, right?
Right. But other than that, I think, as we've already talked about, the market is very slow right now. No sugar.
Yeah, what are your opinions on freight rates kind of rebounding? Because we had a post in the group earlier saying that they were looking at, like, I believe they said it was like May or June, according to the data that they were seeing. I have not seen that.
There's no like
maybe they're looking at different data than what I'm seeing or something. I'm not sure, but
there's no indicator anywhere else showing that the market is going to pick up in any way at all. I mean, the ports are still slow. They're still very slow.
sorry, go ahead.
The ports are still very slow. There's still way more drivers than there are loads. I don't see people spending a ton of money right now. So that's not going to generate any more freight coming into America from the ports. Produce season is expected to be horrible, as we've discussed privately. I mean, I don't know if people are just trying to stay optimistic or what, but we've been looking at it, you and I, and we don't see it. We don't see it for a long time, maybe even a whole year or two. And people don't want to hear that. I think they're all trying to stay optimistic because we just went through the pandemic. We went through the trade war stuff before the pandemic. I think people are just trying to stay optimistic because they don't want to believe that that's really what's happening. But I don't know. I don't know where DAT and FreightWaves are sometimes getting some of their statistics. I agree with a lot of the statistics they put out, right? In the current rates and stuff like that. But rebounding? I don't see us rebounding anytime soon. There's no indicators anywhere, right?
Right. Yeah, I think everybody's kind of tired of the whole doom and gloom.
Right.
Like you mentioned, um, we need some sunshine for sure. Um, but yeah, I don't particularly see things coming back until we see some relief from inflation and consumer spending comes back.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned way back when, with the rising cost of inflation, which I don't know what the numbers are now, but they were saying that the average American's making, what was it, 4 or 7%? Yeah, I think it was like 7% more in income than they were the 2 years previous, but they were actually losing 4%
Because
due
of
to
the cost of
inflation.
everything. Yeah.
And so that's a big factor, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. Um, I don't know. The disposable income isn't out there, so you're not seeing a lot of, or at least not this, spending like we used to.
Right.
Until that happens, I don't see volumes coming back because there's no need for it.
Nope.
Um,
I mean, certain things are going to still move, right? Like,
oh, for sure.
Like I have the semiconductors and the microchips and stuff like that. I mean, that's going to continue to move because companies like big companies like Apple are going to continue to make products. Maybe they make a little less. I don't know. We'll see.
Right.
But see, that's the thing. Even like I want a bunch of lanes, right? I have a bunch of lanes coming up. But we don't know when it's happening. We don't know when it's like when the volume starts. Like the other project you and I discussed, we don't know if it's actually going to happen in March, but that's what they're saying because it was
Yeah, that was
originally
supposed to
supposed to
start in
happen.
January.
Right. So if the economy stays the way it does, they just keep pushing stuff back and pushing it back and pushing it back and pushing it back, And I don't know. I discussed that with someone else too recently. And I don't know if they are pushing stuff back and taking loans to continue to keep the revenue in as their projects aren't happening. But at what point does a company end up to the point where they can't take any more loans and they're going to go bankrupt because nothing's happening? Right? Like that was what his thinking was, that a lot of these projects are never going to happen and they're just taking loans on the fact that they're supposed to have a project. Like they're going to the bank and saying, hey, we have this huge project coming up, and then taking loans. And then the project never happens. And then it just keeps getting pushed out. And it just never ends up happening. That's what his take was, because he was supposed to have a big like military uniform project. And it was supposed to happen a couple months ago, and it's just been getting pushed out. It's just crazy. Yet these companies are still, revenue is still coming in based off of they were supposed to have the project. So they took out loans. It gets ugly because you kind of wonder how some of these companies are surviving when there's nothing going on, right? And I started thinking about it, and maybe he's right. Maybe they're just taking a bunch of loans, man. That's also not good.
It could be. Yeah, that's something I hadn't considered.
I know. I just was talking to him about it the other day. I meant to bring it up, but now I brought it up live. So, but I mean, they could take the loan based off of the projected revenue that they were supposed to get during the project. You can go to a bank and say, hey, we have this project coming up. We need to take a loan to pay people up front. And then we're expected this much income. And then the bank will give it to them if they have good enough credit. And that's what they're doing. But I mean, I just couldn't imagine running a company that way.
Right.
Just going into debt like that. It's just insane.
Well, yeah, in this economy for sure. I mean, unless they're seeing something that we're not and they know it's coming back. you know,
Right.
and that they'll make good on that loan. I don't know. Maybe it's a desperate effort. I don't know.
But like, I just haven't seen any indicators anywhere. The stock market, the ports, the produce, the supply chain. If anybody's got the magic answer where this rebound is supposed to come from, please tell us.
Right? Yeah, I'd love to see it.
We are dying to hear it.
Yeah, I think the prediction that we've kind of been seeing is we're looking at like what, third, fourth quarter, depending. You know,
that, and it may not even be a great rebound. It may be just kind of average, like a little more freight to keep you going.
Potentially 2024. You know.
Yeah.
It's and there again, that's, you know, not to kind of flip back, but there again, this is why I'm really doubling down on strengthening my relationships, especially with my carriers.
Right.
You know, because I don't want to lose them. You know, if this continues, you know, I don't want to have to rebuild new relationships. Not that I won't build new relationships, you know, as volumes pick up, you know, obviously, you know, that's kind of inevitable, and I will have to build new relationships with my existing carriers that run regularly with me. I don't want to lose them.
Right. If they're doing a good job and you're making money and they're making money, you want to keep that relationship going. Like today, like the guy delivered, he did the port work, he did all that for me. They want to work together again, and I have no problem with it. Like those are the kind of guys you want to continue working with. They want to work. They do a good job. The POD was in within like 5 minutes of delivery. It's like, damn, dude, you just made my life easy.
Right.
That's what you want. And so, like you said, and because there's so many carriers out there, but there's only so many good carriers out there, right? I'm not trying to diss like all the people that are trying right now, but like, I mean, the quality of service that I've seen the last year for a lot of people hasn't been great. And I don't know if that was because, you know, they just randomly started up a trucking company and just hired a bunch of people right away or whatnot. But like the quality of service the past year, unless you knew some people really well, has gone down. And I think I hate being this guy, but I think when it gets really bad, which it's bad now, but it's going to get worse, there's going to be a purge of trucking companies, right? We've talked about this. Mm-hmm. And only the guys who are doing a good job are going to be the ones that survive, because the brokers and the shippers are going to want to work with them. So not only does our quality of service matter huge, the trucker actually is the main quality of service. We rely on them to do a good job. Everything they do makes us look good. Everything we do makes them look good. We're kind of a team, right? We're a team, basically. It's essentially. And how do I say that? But the drivers, you know, who do the best are going to be the ones that survive this, you know, and it all comes down to updates on time, you know, just doing a good job in general, you know.
Service failures are something we all, I think, typically want to avoid, whether you're a carrier or a broker.
Yeah.
Because like I have some shippers that I run dedicated for, but I also run spot loads for them as well. You know, they've got some stuff that's not very consistent, but they're like, hey, we've got this, you know, can you do this for us? If I have too many service failures on those spot market loads, you know, using outside carriers that I don't normally work with, and my customer inevitably goes, this isn't working, and I lose that customer, I lose out on a year's worth of revenue. You know, even if that carrier gets dinged for a couple of $100 for you know, late delivery or something like that, you know, they lose a couple of $100, I lose a year's worth of income from that shipper.
Right.
You know, and this is another reason why I prefer to use, you know, those carriers, and build new relationships, strengthens the ones that I already have.
Yep. Like you were saying, I mean, that carrier might lose a few $100, but you might lose a whole year's worth of revenue. And that's why we need good carriers. It's like, our livelihood depends on them. And so, like I said, the guys who are doing the best jobs are going to be the one that survive. It's just the way it is. Unfortunately, I mean, it's tough, right? It is tough. I mean, a lot of these companies are going to disappear, and it's not going to be good. But I'm not here for doom and gloom. I'm just here to keep it real with you guys.
Right.
I wouldn't believe the hype of everything's bouncing back in a few months. I'm just going to throw that out there. We've seen this before.
Well, and I don't mean to pick on carriers, obviously. You know what I mean? I have.
You're not picking on them. It's just that's what happens, right?
Right.
It's just what happens.
Right.
We have way too many carriers on the road right now.
I think we probably have too many dispatch services, and maybe even a few more brokers than we need right now. I think it's there's a lot of it on both sides of that table.
Right. I think and I guess what I don't understand is, like, during COVID, why did everyone want to become a carrier and a broker? That was one of the worst times to be a carrier or a broker in a lot of sectors.
We always see that, though.
It just doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't make sense.
The thing that doesn't make sense to me is someone going out with no prior industry experience and jumping into the industry. They went out and got their own authority, and everything without knowing anything. Right. Maybe they took a training course, maybe they didn't. Especially if they didn't. They don't have any kind of a sales background. I mean, I can't tell you the countless number of new brokers that have hit the industry, and I would get calls, emails. Hey, Tim, can you help these people out? Sure, what's going on? Well, they've been at this now for 6 months. They're almost done. They still don't have their first customer yet.
Where was your last job? Red Lobster.
Right. And I was a cashier, that's, I think, we see a lot of that.
It degrades service. It really does.
And the same thing with dispatch services, overseas call centers. A lot of that. Oh, we'll help you get new customers. These outside call centers.
And we're not saying don't become a broker, but go work for somebody and get some experience first. Don't just go out there.
Become an agent first.
Right.
Yep. Have a book of business that you can transfer. Would be my, at least in my humble opinion.
You got to hustle and do the calls and put in the time and learn the industry before you go out on your own. And that's rough, but that's the way it should be. You got to go work for somebody who makes you make 100 calls a day or 200 calls a day and do the grinding first, and then learn the industry and then go on your own. But a lot of people are just like buying their authority or buying their bond and becoming brokers, and they sink all of their money into it, thinking they're going to get rich quick, and then they find out 6 months later they don't have a customer yet.
Well, and I don't know this for fact, but you see a lot of like some of these other videos and stuff, and they just talk about like the vast amounts of money that you're going to make as a broker, and this freight broker 3 months in, did $160,000, in their first month. Like, no, that doesn't just happen.
No, not in this market.
There's, they've got some background to it, and it's a lot of fluff. Or you see a lot of this with the what do I want to call it? It's like cold calling, but they're doing like mock cold calling.
Right.
And you got two people, one sitting on, either side of the desk, and they go, and they pretend to dial the phone, obviously, and everything. And then they get on there, and you get some other dude on the other side. And he goes, "Thank you for calling the Nabisco Company," and they get, and so then, "Oh yes, this is so and so from XYZ Freight. Could we be added to your freight distribution list?" Absolutely. It doesn't happen like that.
No,
But people think, number one, you don't sell to the gatekeeper.
no,
there's so many things wrong with that mock phone call.
no. And the thing about it is, like, even in this market, you and I have experience, right? And we're making calls, and they don't even want to talk to the seasoned, experienced people that know what they're doing right now. So imagine how hard it is for somebody who doesn't have experience out there right now on their own.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not saying that it can't be done coming in without any logistic, any prior experience, but you're going to be way behind. You know what I mean? Without being an agent, without having, some sort of mentorship.
Right. And our company is newer, so we're seeing a little pushback, I think, because we're new, right? But the lucky thing for us is we know how this industry works already. So we'll just keep at it, and eventually something will hit. But luckily, you have revenue streams somewhere else on top of this to keep things going. Some of these people don't have alternate revenue streams or don't have anything coming in, and they're out here suffering. But I mean, we can help people. We could train people and teach them how to do the business, but we can't guarantee you're going to get a customer right away. Not with the way things are right now. We can give you all the tools, but it's still going to be a tough road, at least for the next couple of years or a year or whatever. So I don't know. Maybe the Freight Waves genie will fix it in 2 weeks. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I trust the DAT more than Freight Waves. That's myself. I mean,
right. DAT. I mean, I don't really look to them for, like, it's impossible to predict the future, right? So anybody telling you that it's going to rebound is bullshitting. Now, because there's just no indicators anywhere, right? There's nothing. The stock market, the ports, the supply chain, everything is indicating otherwise. What I look to DAT for, what I look to DAT for is, like, the current rates when I need a load covered. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure. I mean, I think that they look at indicators. You know what I mean?
But what are these indicators? Because the real world isn't showing them.
Right.
So I want to know what the algorithm is.
Right.
Clue us in.
And while I don't believe that anybody has a crystal ball, right, and we can, predict the future with 100% certainty, I do think that it kind of gives us a little bit of an idea, looking at that data of about where things should be at that point. And that's why I think it's important to kind of, like, re-looking at that data every week, as it updates, and make adjustments as necessary.
We're cheerful. We're just, I mean, we're kind of like in it, I mean, I have some good customers that are going to keep me all right, but I mean, new customers, it's a tough road right now.
Well, if you talk to a lot of carriers, like anytime I talk to a carrier, whether it's my existings or, if I'm booking a spot load, if I get a moment, especially if it's a driver, like an owner operator, it seems like those conversations happen more. Sometimes it's with a dispatcher. But, they always ask me, hey, what's going on with this? What's going on with that? Why are things like this? When do you think things are going to turn around? And I love having those conversations with them.
Right.
And we try to put
We're gonna give
together
it to you
some sort
straight,
of
man. I
yeah.
didn't mean to cut you off. We're gonna just give it to you guys straight, regardless. Like if it's great, we're gonna tell you it's great, man. We're gonna, we're gonna crack a beer and tell you things are great. When things aren't great, we're gonna let you know that we don't. We're just giving it to you guys how we see it.
By the way, sorry, go ahead.
No, continue. You're good.
Oh, by the way, if you're a new freight broker or freight agent, and I have been doing this for the last little while, but you landed your very first customer, we'd love to hear about that. I don't remember if I brought that up during Monday's video or not. I may have forgotten, but yeah, huge cheerleader over here for you guys if you just landed your first customer.
That's awesome.
I don't ever want to see anybody fail.
That's hard work, and it's even harder right now. So if you got your first customer and you just did it, congratulations. Like I'm proud of you, like for real, because I mean, we're out here calling shippers every day and we're being told, hey, we're good for the year, or we don't have any capacity. We don't have any loads right now. Like, so if you got a customer, you just kind of did the inevitable at this moment. Or not the inevitable, but what's the word for it? Where it's like really difficult, but almost impossible, but you did it.
Right.
What's a good word for that? I'm trying to think. I've been streaming for 4 hours already. My brain is dead.
Right.
Did the difficult. That's what we'll just call it today.
Yeah.
Until we figure out that word. I'm not going to call it a miracle.
It's definitely different. I mean, even, as veteran brokers, kind of going into this, going into cold calling, it's different than when volumes are up, for sure. Because a lot of these shippers that already have established relationships with a broker, they've already got capacity, so unless that broker is screwed up big time, it's like
it's just tough right now.
But I mean, it's not impossible. I mean, we're still landing, new customers.
We're getting customers, so
not maybe at the success rate that
we're used to.
See, yeah.
Okay, so let's not say new customers. New customers are easy to get, right? Freight is hard to get right now. We could have 1 million customers, but are they shipping anything?
Right.
Right. Everyone has kind of slowed their shipping down right now. It is winter. Winter's almost over. Maybe it does go up. Who knows? But I'm just saying indicators don't look good.
Yeah, and I hope that they do,
right.
As we get into spring and summer, with
we love it. We like it when there's more freight too.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it'll turn around eventually.
Right. On a lighter topic, what does everyone like to do when they're not doing logistics? What do you guys all like to do?
Talk about it in my sleep.
Do you like to go fishing? Do you hunt? What do you guys do? I like when work is over, unless I'm talking to Tim, I don't talk about logistics at all. What's everyone like to do? Consumer spending is up. Trucking companies are growing. Consumer spending is up? I don't know about that.
Right.
If consumer spending was up, wouldn't the ports be popping? Like, wouldn't they be going crazy right now? If the spending was up, we would be importing more, because most of our products don't come from here. They come from overseas.
One of the things that and this is something I've heard since I was young, is pay attention to how pawn shops are doing. Because if you start seeing a lot of people coming in to sell things, typically that's a problem.
Right. And you just read something the other day about the pawn shops are going crazy right now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. What's your I mean, do you have the data for that somewhere where we can look it up that we don't know about potentially?
Right. And like trucking companies growing doesn't really have anything to do with the market getting better. Trucking companies were growing during the worst period of logistics. Like people were buying trucks.
I mean, I'm not doubting you. I mean,
Don't ask me why, but if consumer spending is up, I want to see the data for it. That's all.
Right. Yeah.
That would be a good indicator. I'd be fucking. I swore. I would be happy. I would be very happy. Like, I need this data. I need to be a little happier. So if you can find it, and we could see it,
yeah,
we can maybe say, hey, we'll wait.
Maybe something that we're not potentially.
Maybe in May or June it does pick up. But
that would be awesome.
Right. I'm gonna look it up. Let's see. Consumer spending. I guess NBC Montana posted that Americans are returning to stores as inflation eases and jobs remain plentiful. But the deal here is like, let's go in here and just see how much it's actually eased up. It says retail sales increased 3% in January. But how far down were we already, right? That's another thing you got to look at. When you go down so far, you can only go up, right? Like, you know what I mean? So
right.
Expectations and showing growth across a variety of industries. I mean, the trucking companies have always been growing. Like I said, they were growing even when the pandemic was going on. People were buying trucks. Don't ask me why, but I don't think trucking companies growing is a good indicator that the market is getting better. It really doesn't indicate anything. It just shows that someone is making an investment hoping that it's going to pan out.
I might slightly disagree with you on that, though.
I mean, I don't know. People were buying trucks for the last 2 years. During the pandemic, even.
Right.
Right. I mean,
for sure.
I don't really work on the spot market all that much because I have.
Yeah, I don't either.
So I don't really know about the spot market. I mean, the spot market, the rates are terrible. I could see it on DAT, but I don't really do anything with the spot market because most of the stuff I have is stuff I know is coming ahead of time. We already did the rates a long time ago, and it's guaranteed to come. You know what I mean?
Well, like that lane I moved out of Washington the other day, a dry van was coming out of Auburn, Washington to Richmond, California.
Right.
And the bottom end of the market was like $1.37 a mile.
Right.
I don't know. I guess I was just kind of shocked. I was like, holy cow.
So yeah, people are returning to stores, right? But the Fed bumped interest rates up 0.25% last month. And they're going to keep raising rates and leave them elevated to get inflation down. So either way, people are going to be hurting in some way, shape, or form. So it's not going to be all perfect. It just says here that they're going to keep raising interest rates continuously throughout the year.
Right.
To kind of ease up inflation, but it's still there.
I think I'd heard a little bit about that. There was like a slight uptick in January. Is more or less kind of a hiccup, but it wasn't anything that was going to sustain.
Now they
is still down.
They're saying that the retail sales have more than recovered ground lost in November and December, which is kind of good. That's really good. But will the sales continue, right, for the next few months? Is it going to continue at this rate, or is it going to kind of plateau, right? It's good that it's recovering right now, but is it going to continue? That's what I wonder.
Yeah. I mean, I guess time will tell. I mean, I hope it does.
Yeah, me too.
I hope that I'm wrong and that the data that I've been looking at is incorrect.
If it does, that's great for everyone. So
for sure. I guess when I look at like a lot of my existing customers, and their volumes are still down
right.
or non-existent for a whole week, and then the following week, there's a couple loads here, a couple loads there. I
Like
mean,
everyone in this industry I've talked to, including you, everyone for the last 3-4 months, their volume of freight has continuously dropped. You
yeah,
start off when one guy I talked to, he had 14 loads a week. The next week he had 9 loads a week. The next week he's got 6 loads a week. Now he's getting about 4 to 4 loads a week. Like, so I'm hoping like this spending report here will probably bring some freight in. That would be great because then our customers could push some stuff out.
right.
I'm not trying to be negative, but when we get conflicting data, like I don't know if this consumer spending here is reflective of what's going on with my customers or someone else's customers or your customer, Tim, because what we're seeing is our freight levels dropping weekly, lanes
Right.
disappearing. Like, you know what I
Well,
mean?
spot freight, yeah. I mean, a lot of at least for me, is dedicated. But yeah,
Right.
spot market. Like I've got some customers. They're strictly spot market loads, and they would typically have 30-40 loads a day, and now they're down to 2 or 3 a day, and they
Right.
have not come back. So you know um, and this again, and there again, that sort of like tells you that you need to be not waiting for that, especially for like for you new brokers. That this is why I always try to push point that we need to be cold calling constantly, because your fault, their fault, nobody's fault. Shippers will leave you,
Here
or
it
in
is.
this instance, volumes will fall off. You know,
So at the end of
anything
the
can happen.
article, it says, looking ahead, with hiring set to slow meaningfully and rising economic uncertainty likely to dampen households' willingness to spend, we foresee weak consumer spending in the first half of the year. Right there at the end of the article. So even with the things going on right now, they still see the first half of the year being pretty shitty.
When
Yeah, I
was
mean,
that published?
this was published 1 day ago.
Oh,
So, I mean, it's good. I guess it's good that it recovered from November and December, but the first half of the year is still looking pretty bad.
right.
And in my brokerage, everything I have is like dedicated freight. It's like lanes that I have won months ago. This,
Mr. Negative.
yeah, I'm just trying to tell you guys, like, I don't want to say something that I don't believe, right? Like, I
And
just
it
don't.
does kind of sound like we're all doom and gloom tonight, right? But that's just we're just trying to be real, you
Right.
know.
Like,
Uh,
I'm not doom and gloom. I'm just saying, like, it was right there in the article. It said, yeah, we recovered from November and December, but the first half of the year is expected to be bad.
right.
So it kind of what's the word for it? I have no words because I've been streaming for so long. But
Your mind is fried.
it reinforced kind of what we were talking about. I'm sorry that you're depressed. You have a good night. We'll probably be more positive when the market turns around.
Hey, we're gonna take your word for it that everything is on the up and up and climbing and getting better every day.
We could be like inspirational freight people and just like make those videos. It's like, you're gonna make 200,000 a year in your first year, and you're gonna get 50 customers your first week. Download this training script and watch our videos for $50 a month, and we will make you rich. maybe we could do that. We would probably be pretty successful on YouTube as well if we did that.
Yeah,
but
I couldn't sleep at night doing that.
I wouldn't be able to be like, I wouldn't be happy with myself. I would hate myself for that.
Yeah.
But it's just kind of, it's cool to be optimistic, but you don't want to be, you don't want to be foolishly optimistic, I guess is the words for it. Hope for the best, but see what's going on in front of you.
No sunshine and rainbows here. Not
No,
today.
Not today.
Oh. No, I truly do though. I hope things rebound quickly. You know, I've talked to enough carriers that have had enough of this, and you know, things get better.
It's rough. It's bad. People are struggling, and they're working hard for like pennies right now. It's terrible. And guess what? Diesel fuel is still expensive.
Well, and like I said, I mean, some of these shippers, like at least like my larger shippers, and some of those that I still push spot market loads for, you know, not that there's a lot of it, but you know, for instance, there was a load out of Indiana going to Salt Lake City, Utah, and I don't know, maybe I brought this up in the last video. Market rate, I believe, on that was like 4,000 and change, and they wanted to send it to me for $3,000.
Yeah,
like, that was their rate to me. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? You know what I mean? They're already $1,000 below market, which is what the truck should be paid. So even if I didn't keep a penny off of it, you know what I mean?
You just got to kind of tell
Salt Lake City for $1,000 under market.
Yeah, that's when I tell my customer, I love you guys, but I'm gonna have to pass on that one.
Yeah, you know, but that kind of seems to be the trend with a lot of their loads. Just thinking of this one in particular, is that they're usually anywhere between, you know, $200 to $1,000 below.
Right. I love that. You're looking at the market rate. You have the lane on the computer. You're like, oh, I could probably pay the truck like, you know, $1,500, $1,600, get them at least $3 a mile or $2.90 to $3 a mile, try to get them some decent money. And then you're like, I'm going to have to charge, you know, maybe a couple $100 above cost. It's a short run. And then they're like $500 below what you would even pay the truck. Who's covering that? And if someone is covering that, shame on you, because you're part of the reason why rates are going down. Like, I'm sorry, someone who covers something like that where they're like, I don't see any which way you can make money on that.
Well, and they're uber strict too. Let that driver show up a minute late for an appointment, and they're so fast to ding them. You know, oh, they were late, $250 fine.
Right. Well, my shippers tell me to stay competitive, right? But they don't tell me to like go way below. They know I got to make money, and they're understanding. And I don't think every shipper is like that. I've had a relationship with the guy running the company for like 5-6 years now, and I've run airplane engines for him and done a lot of aerospace stuff for him. So he knows me. And so when you have a good relationship like that, they're willing to pay you a little bit more money. And that, I think that goes along, again, like you said, with building relationships. That's going to be more important in the long run than just getting every customer. Because your relationships you've already built are going to be the ones, you know, kind of feeding you. They're going to be the ones feeding you throughout the year. But like at the end of the day, I mean, if you do a really good job, people start talking about you. You get referred on other things too. I mean, it's like it all goes hand in hand. But yeah, building them relationships and keeping them are the most important right now when the market is like this. And
I would absolutely agree with this comment. The market was up for about 2 years.
It was really up. Yeah,
I absolutely agree with that. And you know, obviously, if you were moving freight during that period of time till now, yeah, I mean, we saw it happening.
But there was
you have to
also
be
a lot
blind
less
man not
trucks.
to.
There was also a lot less trucks on the road, so we had to pay more, right, for everything. The drivers were demanding more money, and they had to pay them, right? And when the pandemic kind of ended there, the rates kind of they dropped a lot. And I actually was in a few situations where drivers were like, "Well, I was making this much money during COVID, and now I'm making like half as much." I go, "Well, I had to kind of point out that the rates were crazy. During that time, the rates were just unrealistically crazy. They were almost double or triple than their historic averages sometimes." Yeah, I went back, I think, like 4 or 5 years on some of the lanes, and I looked at the rates, and they were almost like double or triple during the pandemic. And I think a lot of drivers got used to that kind of money coming in, and they thought it was going to last forever, and they didn't really adjust very well to the changes of the pandemic leaving. It's technically still going, but like the worst of it is gone. People are back to work and everything, and the rates have gone down. We knew that was going to happen, right? Because they were insane, a lot of them. You know what I mean? Um, and I think a lot of drivers,
ebb and a flow, right?
right?
Or a bullwhip effect.
But it was just crazy. It wasn't normal. It wasn't just like, oh, they're up a little bit. They were up like they were like to the moon. Like the rates were crazy,
Right.
you know. And so it's he said it, I made his dog sad. but I think the drivers and even some of the brokers got used to the rates being so high during that time period that when they dropped, it was kind of like a shell shock. Like they were just kind of didn't know how to adjust right away. But I mean, I think they're a little low now, but a few months ago when the rates were a little higher, I think they were right where they needed to be. I think the problem was the fuel cost. The fuel cost went way up. And that kind of screwed things up. But the rates were kind of right near the historical averages on a lot of the lanes. You know what I mean? So, but now we're starting to see it dip low to the point where it's like below those historical averages, and it's getting kind of dicey, right? So, but thinking back to those 2 years where the rates were really high, of course they're going to fight this to get the rates down because they were spending astronomical amounts of money on shipping.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard that almost every day when the market was way up.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? We can't keep going like this.
Yeah, these companies couldn't keep paying shipping like that. Like,
right.
So for new people, other than keep prospecting, what are some other things that can be done to build relationships? Well, if you're new, it's going to be all prospecting, really.
Well, yeah, networking,
talking to people, maybe make new friends, go golfing with people that are in the industry. I don't know, do whatever you can to network.
I would
put
ask
yourself out there.
I would ask first and foremost if you have a LinkedIn profile.
Right. That's a good one.
If you don't already have a LinkedIn profile, I would suggest getting one. There are groups on LinkedIn, just like on Facebook.
I like
other transportation managers and things, and get in there and network.
I like him a lot. This guy here, I can't see his name because I'm not signed in. It just says Facebook user. But
yeah, for some reason that's the way it shows up on our end here.
You know what? I would open a pizza joint too, because you're going to make more money in that pizza joint than you would be as a new broker. I mean, you could go work at a pizza joint for $20-$30 an hour right now. So, I mean, you might do better as a pizza flipper. Like we were just talking about this.
Right.
If it gets really bad, I might go flip a pizza or two. I don't know. No shame in making money.
Right. But yeah, definitely, just to kind of finish that thought, I would definitely network, talk to friends, family. If you have a friend or a family member maybe that works in manufacturing or distribution or something like that,
yeah.
obviously, or they might even know somebody, a friend of a friend of a friend, even. Those are all things that you can do to help get your feet in the door. Reach out through the Facebook group. That's why we built it. It's an area for shippers and brokers and carriers, to kind of network and help each other grow. Right. So, yeah, I would utilize that. Maybe find out where a carrier's needs are. Maybe they've got a load out of, I don't know, LA to Miami. I don't know. They're running cross country, but they don't have a load out of the Miami area. I'm just hypothetically speaking. So maybe focus your prospecting there.
Also, I mean, this is still prospecting, but like, get some contacts off LinkedIn, like Tim said, and call those guys. If they don't answer, though, you could use Chat GPT and write yourself a really nice freaking email to send to your customers in 2 minutes on there. And you could tailor it to look like you wrote that thing. Like, we've done it. It's beautiful. And you could send your packet and everything and just send it to a bunch of people. But make sure you follow up with these guys. Like, sending one email with your company's information on it isn't going to do any good, right? Because 9 times out of 10 it gets overlooked. It's the follow-ups and the phone calls. So you want to try to make that first point of contact on the phone. If you can't get to who you need to talk to, then you send an email. If you want to use that, what's that called, Tim? Where you track the emails? What's that called again? Where you
HubSpot?
So use HubSpot or something like that to see if they've opened the emails. That's important. And then if they didn't open it even or respond to it, or if they just looked at it, then you could see when they opened it. That's the cool thing. So even if they don't respond, they opened it. So they read your stuff. So
Right.
Then you follow up, a day or two later with another email. And then if they don't answer that one, boom. I'm kind of aggressive. If they don't answer by the end of the day, I'm calling. You know what I mean? And I just keep doing it. It's persistence. They may get annoyed by you, but I just keep doing it until somebody says to stop, or I have a bunch of lanes.
For sure.
And that's what it boils down to. Just doing it over and over again.
And like, I've used the example in the past, and I don't know, maybe some won't find it as relevant, but like my uncle, when he was young, lived not that far away from Kellogg's.
Right.
And he would show up every day on the steps and try to get this guy's attention, to get a job. Day after day after day after day, this guy would say, "Sorry, kid, don't have a job for you. Don't have a job for you." Then finally, the one day showed up and he goes, "You're not going away, are you?" He said, "No, sir." He says, "Do you know how to push a broom?" And he gave him a job.
There you go.
Pushing a broom, cleaning stuff up. And then, then he got promoted and things like that. Eventually he did end up leaving there, ended up going to college and, doing things and got into insurance and whatnot. But just the being diligent, I guess, having follow through and not
prospecting sucks. It really does.
It can be tough. It's probably sales is like one of the number one things that we do, but I think
it's not for everyone.
Well, I think a lot of people are it's hard to hear rejection.
Yep. Right? I've been doing sales for years and I still hate rejection. Sometimes I have to go and take like a couple minutes. I have to take a drink of some soda or maybe even a beer. And then I come back and I hit the sales calls again. But I usually only get upset when it's one I thought I really had in the bag, right? And then I get rejected. That's the worst, is when you think you got it, right? And then it doesn't work out. That's the one that sucks.
For sure. I have actually landed customers on the first call, and not all of them have been bad. A lot of them actually have turned out to be some pretty decent customers. But I will agree with you that oftentimes it's never on the first call. In fact, I think Devin and I had mentioned during the last
6 months, man. It took
that
6
I spent
months.
a year working on a shipper.
Yep, 6 months to do the one I have now.
Obviously,
Continuously following up.
I already had a book of business, but there was a particular shipper that I'd found, and I went after him, and I just didn't give up.
Right.
And it was, like I said, like it was almost a year to the day that I finally moved my first load with them.
Starting to feel good thinking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it took 6 months. The feeling that I got when they finally got everything all squared away was just a relief. Because it was the first customer for the new brokerage. So that was like a milestone. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. I just have to text my wife real quick and let her know I'm going to be late. I'm supposed to be picking her up.
Yeah, I have to cook dinner for the children here in a minute. I have to start.
I just realized that. I'm like, holy cow.
I'm going to be making some tacos tonight, chicken tacos. So I have to get going soon. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we had tacos for dinner tonight. So
that's what I'm doing. It's 5:56 here.
Yeah, it's 4 minutes to 8.
Yep.
So luckily I don't have to go far. I'll only be a couple of minutes late. But
exactly.
Yeah, I suppose so. I don't end up with a black eye. I better no, she's not that bad. But
so anyhow, guys, Mr. Gloomy here is going to probably get going soon.
Yeah.
I'm not gloomy. I promise you, I'm fun.
No, he's really not. He's really not.
It's just kind of what we see going on in the market. We're giving you our perspective.
Well, just being realistic.
Yeah,
I think, but yeah, if there's some other data out there that to kind of cross-reference what we're seeing, I would love to see it. And I'll probably do some digging around for it tonight.
Because the data I read was partially correct. It made up for lost ground, but it's not. It's not expected to continue.
Come back with any kind of real result until
like half of the year is gone.
Right. But if you guys need any help with cold calling, if you're brand new, like I said, I almost always mention this. Shoot me an email at freightmasterresources@gmail.com, and we'll see if maybe we can kind of get together. Maybe Devin or I, or even both of us could set aside a time to kind of help you out, answer some questions, things like that. Maybe help you get your first customer and get you rolling. Yeah, I appreciate everybody subscribing. Again, don't forget to check out Devin's channel, Pure Sports Detroit. I've dropped the links in there. Somebody asked for them again for both channels. So
for sure, appreciate that. Also, keep track. Tim and I may start another a video thing on our other YouTube. It probably won't be about logistics at all. It'll be about our journey to get partnered on YouTube. We'll probably keep it more light and entertainment valued. Freightmaster Resources is where you're going to see me talk about logistics with Tim a lot. But we do have plans to, kind of hit some other avenues, maybe have some fun. You may even see us drinking beer live. Who knows?
Should I come on your channel and live chat logistics, talk to you while you're gaming?
Oh, no. No.
Just to mess with you a little bit.
It would be fun to just kind of have a just chatting stream where we just drink beer and react to videos online. That'd be kind of fun.
Well, if we started doing this every Friday, we could potentially do that. Just sit back and
I am a fun guy. It just wasn't today. I had to give you some facts that weren't exactly fun.
Right.
It's like
you had to be that guy tonight.
Right. It's like the guy who has to tell everybody that the business is going to go out of business. I have to be that guy. It's not quite that bad, thankfully. But
you should have been in HR. You're fired. Reprimanding people.
I really like you. You've been a great employee for the last 20 years of your career. We're not offering you any severance pay. but we really appreciate the hard work you put in, and I have to let you know we are letting you go. Please leave your name tag on the desk. Thank you.
We valued your time here with us, but get out.
I wouldn't even be able to say that to some guy. I'd probably like slip him some money. I'd slip him a pack of cigarettes and a beer for his way out.
Don't cry. Here's $50.
Right. Oh man, I couldn't imagine doing that. You know, they have consulting firms that like come in and do that for companies. It's like, could you imagine being the guy that like sits down with everyone one by one and lays them off, and then what kind of fucking sorry about my language, but what kind of like night must you have after doing that? Holy cow. I'd have to go to the bar and just go crazy.
Right. Hung over, hit it again the next day.
Right. That'd be miserable, but there are consulting firms that like come in and do that. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
I'd ask for a lot of money to be that depressed. Anyhow, guys, I had fun.
Yep.
Tim had fun.
It was a pleasure.
We kind of touched on a more darker topic today, not intentionally, but like that's kind of needed to touch on the market. Yeah, don't give up hope. Hope is all we have. No, I'm kidding.
Wow. And with that note,
I'm trying to be the fun guy.
Right. But okay, guys. Again, thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out Devin's channel as always. Be kind to one another. We'll see you next time.
You'll see me having fun.
Okay.